One day before our family trip, my son revealed a hidden truth. I wasn't included among 40 others. Sarah stood in her small kitchen, a whirlwind of flour, sugar, and the unmistakable scent of vanilla filling the air. Tomorrow, her family's annual reunion awaited, a cherished gathering to celebrate her grandfather's 80th birthday. Laughter, stories, and the warmth of unity were just around the corner, or so she thought. As she mixed the cake batter, her heart leaped with the familiar anticipation. But then, Ethan burst through the door, eyes wide, face pale. "Mom," he stammered, his voice trembling. "I overheard something." The cake batter dripped from the bowl as Sarah's heart plummeted. "What is it, sweetheart?" Ethan's shoulders slumped, as if the weight of the world rested on them. They said, "I'm not counted among the family for the reunion. It's like I don't even belong." The words twisted like a knife in her heart. The thought of Ethan feeling excluded was unbearable. He was her shining light, a product of love and resilience. The warmth of their family, built on sweat and tears, felt threatened by whispers she didn't even know existed. "Ethan, listen to me," she spoke softly, kneeling to meet his gaze. "You are part of this family. It doesn't matter what they say. Our bond is stronger than money or status." His eyes glimmered with defiance, but were shadowed by the hurt. "But how can they see us as family if they think we're not the same as them? I heard them talking about how we're struggling." The air grew dense between them. Sarah felt like a lifeline was slipping through her fingers. Should she confront those distant relatives, demanding recognition for her son? Or would that only feed the fire of judgment? As days passed, she watched Ethan retreat more into himself. The vibrant smile she loved faded into uncertainty. Just the thought of that family gathering became tension-edged instead of heartwarming. How could she protect her son from judgment that stemmed from wealth and circumstance, from the prejudices that seemed to strangle their beloved traditions? Sarah put up a brave front, but within her swirled a storm of desperation. When she closed her eyes, she saw her families past the shared meals, the laughter, the unconditional love. And yet, here they stood, on the brink of division. She remembered the long-held values of acceptance, the teachings of her grandfather, urging family bonds above all else. The day of the reunion dawned gray and foreboding. Would they stand united as a family, or would prejudice and misunderstanding tear them apart? Could a simple gathering be the storm that shifted the very fabric of what family meant? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Ethan's resolve cast a new light on the worry. He stepped forward, deciding to confront the family himself. A surge of determination ripped through him. This was no small act. It was a stepping stone to reclaiming his place at the family table. However, as he prepared to speak, a knot of dread twisted in Sarah's belly. What if their family's long-standing prejudices shattered his courage instead of fostering acceptance? The stage was set. Would the reunion heal their wounds, or would the threads of family continue to unravel? The morning of the reunion arrived with a mix of excitement and dread. Sarah stood at the window, a chilly breeze tousling her hair, the gray skies mirroring the turmoil in her heart. She watched as relatives arrived, some hugging each other tightly, while others exchanged forced smiles. The lively chatter echoed in the yard, but somewhere in it, Ethan's voice felt absent. She could see him sitting quietly on the porch steps, arms wrapped around his knees, lost in thought. Just then, a tight knot in her stomach tightened even more. Today was supposed to be special a celebration. But how could they celebrate when a dark shadow loomed over their unity? Gathering her determination, Sarah walked outside. She sat beside Ethan, warmth radiating from her into the coolness of the morning. "Hey, buddy," she said softly, nudging him gently. "Ready to face the family?" He looked up, his blue eyes searching hers for answers. I don't know, Mom. What if they just keep saying those things? What if they don't see me? In that moment, Sarah felt an overwhelming urge to shield her son from every hurtful glance and cutting comment. You are stronger than you know, she replied, her voice steady. Remember what we talked about? You belong to this family just as much as anyone else. Ethan nodded, but his uncertainty was still painted across his face. Just then, the sound of laughter erupted from a group of aunts, followed by the clinking of glasses on the picnic tables. It was almost time to give their grandfather a toast, and with it, the honor of family tradition. Taking a deep breath, Sarah grabbed Ethan's hand. Let us go together, she urged, rising to her feet. We'll face them side by side. As they approached the crowd, the warmth of familial greetings surrounded them. Then they arrived at the gathering, a cluster of bright balloons, colorful banners, and the scent of barbecue wafting through the air. The atmosphere was alive, yet a hush fell over the group as they caught sight of Sarah and Ethan walking hand in hand. Ethan's heart raced. Shoulders back, he pressed forward with Sarah's hand still in his, grounding him. Suddenly, one of the distant relatives, Aunt Carol, walked up, her face split into a wide smile, but Sarah could see the flicker of judgment beneath it. Well, look who finally decided to show up, she said with forced cheerfulness. Heat flushed Sarah's cheeks. We wouldn't miss it for the world, she replied, her voice strained yet firm. Funny how family works, huh? Aunt Carol continued, her gaze sliding toward Ethan, who shifted uncomfortably at the words that dripped like honeyed poison. Actually, Ethan interjected, suddenly standing taller than he felt. Family is about more than just blood or wealth. It's about love. I'm here because I belong and I always will. A wave of silence washed over the crowd. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She looked around. Some aunts whispered to each other, while the heavy silence pressed in on Ethan. Yet, he stood there vulnerable, yet fiercely defiant. What happened next would decide if the family could accept him or continue the pull of division. Sarah felt the weight of anticipation cling to the air. Would they embrace Ethan's courage or push him away further? Those old family values hung in the balance, ready to tip in either direction. As the tension crackled, Sarah sensed change was in the air, but would it be for better or worse? The moment of truth was on the horizon, yet her heart raced, knowing her son had already taken the bravest step. But how would the rest of the family respond? As she felt time stretch before them, she realized this reunion had the potential to be a crossroads. Would acceptance blossom, or would old grudges stain their legacy? A tense silence enveloped them. The eyes of the family turned from Ethan's brave words to each other, silently weighing their thoughts. Sarah squeezed Ethan's hand tightly, anchoring her worry as she could feel the heartbeat of the crowd drumming louder with uncertainty. Then, as if to break the thick air, Uncle Jim stepped forward, his brow furrowed. Ethan, he began, though his voice was still steadier than Sarah expected. It takes courage to speak your mind, and I'm proud of you for that. He shifted uncomfortably, glancing towards Aunt Carol, who seemed less than pleased. We all have room for growth, right? We can do better. Ethan's face softened, yet uncertainty still danced in his eyes. The acceptance he wished for seemed just out of reach. That was when Grace, Ethan's oldest cousin, pushed her way through the crowd. At 12, she was just starting to understand the sticky complexities of adulthood. I think you're really brave, Ethan, she said, her voice clear and unwavering. If it were me, I'd be scared to say that. But you shouldn't be. Your family. A collective hum began to emerge, small clusters of murmurs breaking the hush as other relatives absorbed Grace's words. Sarah felt a swell of hope rise within her, but it was fragile, ready to shatter at any moment. Would they choose to embrace Ethan's spirit, or would fear and prejudice cloak their acceptance once again? He's not just family because of where he was born. Family is about who you choose to love, Grace continued, her cheeks flushed but her voice powerful. Just because he's different doesn't mean he doesn't belong. We all have our quirks. She giggled, Attempting to lighten the heavy mood, a few chuckles rippled through the crowd, a crack in the armor of discomfort. Sarah saw Aunt Margaret roll her eyes, but then she took a slow breath as though a realization dawned. In these moments, hope flickered brighter against the backdrop of hesitation. Ethan is right, Aunt Margaret finally said, her voice carrying weight. We've got to be better. We've all made mistakes. She paused, her gaze steadily landing on Ethan. I'm sorry if we've made you feel less than you are. You are part of this family. Sarah felt Ethan's hand tighten around hers. His eyes sparkled with emotion as he tried to process the words. This was at the pivot point that had haunted them for years. See? You're amazing, Sarah whispered, boldness weaving through the warmth of their shared moment. But then, the unexpected happened. Aunt Carol stepped forward once more, her smile somewhat broader, but laced with skepticism. I just still don't know how this is supposed to work. What happens in the future? Can we truly change? Ethan's heart sank, and Sarah's pulse quickened in alarm. Would they dismiss this moment, allowing fear of the unknown to override burgeoning love? What if we don't have to have all the answers right now? Ethan spoke up, his voice steadying. It's okay to take small steps. We just need to start somewhere. Ethan's sincerity was palpable, radiating a hope that permeated the crowd. But Sarah felt a new knot tighten in her stomach. The conversation was momentarily alive, yet the reaction of their family hung precariously in the balance. As the adults exchanged glances, Sarah wondered whether the acceptance they sought would hold. Or would past beliefs wrap around them like chains, dragging them back into old patterns. The reunion, which was supposed to be a celebration, suddenly hung on these fragile threads of connection. As the sun broke through the clouds above, illuminating Ethan's quiet bravery, Sarah prayed it would be a step toward healing, not a wall that divided them further. With everything now resting on the brink, she held her breath, waiting to see whether love would conquer all, or if history would bind them in its shadows once more. What would it take for hearts to open? And if they did, could they withstand that first storm of emotional release? Aunt Carol's voice lingered in the air, pregnant with doubt, and the buzz around them fell silent once again. Ethan's courage seemed to hang in the balance, teetering precariously, and Sarah could feel her heart racing. It was as if time itself had paused, waiting for the family's response. Small steps, Uncle Jim echoed softly, his gaze lingering on Ethan. Maybe that's all we need. His voice was tinged with a flicker of hope, yet the uncertainty was palpable. Another cousin, Pierre, stepped forward, his reputation as the family jokester fading into seriousness. Look, we can't let old fears dictate our future. Ethan's right. We can acknowledge our flaws but also embrace change. The crowd seemed to stir, shifting with mixed emotions. Some nodded slowly, while others exchanged glances, processing what was unfolding. Like when I brought home that awful potato salad last summer, Grace piped up unexpectedly, a lightness in her voice that held on to the moment. Her infectious grin spread, and laughter broke through the heaviness. Or when I tried to bake a cake, and it turned into soup. Sarah couldn't resist adding. A ripple of laughter followed, and the tension cracked just a bit more. Encouraged, Ethan took a deep breath. See? We can all stumble. But it's how we learn and grow that matters. I want us to grow together. I don't want to hide who I am from a family I love. Sarah's chest swelled with pride. She caught Aunt Margaret's eye again. There was a flicker of admiration there, a glimmer of melting resistance. But then Aunt Carol spoke again, her skepticism still evident. You all make it sound easy, but change isn't that simple. What if someone doesn't want to accept this new reality? Uncle Jim stepped forward, his jaw tight, but his eyes softened with determination. Then we educate them, Carol. We have to be willing to confront our discomforts, and that starts right here, today. If we don't try, what's the point? Ethan looked at Sarah, a mix of fear and bravery reflected in his gaze. Please, he said, his voice small yet powerful. I just want to feel like I belong, like I'm loved for who I am. Sarah felt every little ounce of hope in the room fluctuate as their family absorbed his plea. Was this at the moment they finally broke through the barriers? Aunt Margaret nodded slowly, her expression contemplative. Perhaps we haven't always been fair, but we can try to accept everyone as they are. Let us support each other, even when we don't fully understand. A wave of warmth washed over Sarah. She squeezed Ethan's hand tighter. Yet Aunt Carol remained still, her face unreadable. The silence pressed in, thick but also potent with possibility. Maybe we start with a family meeting, Grace suggested, breaking the quiet once more. To talk about it? Ask questions? Love looks different for all of us. That's a great idea, Ethan said, a spark igniting in his eyes. Let us discuss this together. As voices began to rise again, each family member sharing thoughts and concerns, one underlying message united them, the desire to connect, to belong. Sarah could feel the change echoing through the room, bittersweet like the reminder of roadblocks still littered across their path. Yet what if acceptance wasn't just a one-time thing? What if it turned into a series of heartfelt confrontations, each one peeling back layers of misunderstanding? With every word, Sarah felt a ripple of excitement. They were opening doors, forging paths where only walls used to stand. This was a moment she knew would stay with them no matter what happened next. But what lay ahead? Would the courage they summoned today carry them through the challenges that awaited? As they exchanged ideas and laughter, Sarah felt the storm clouds of fear and doubt starting to part. Yet the shadows loomed large. Would they all weather the next storm together? As the conversation buzzed with snippets of laughter and earnest discussion, Sarah squeezed Ethan's hand again, feeling a surge of love wash over her. She could sense that this was only the beginning. Families were funny that way. They had the daunting ability to evolve, but it took a leap of faith, and today Ethan's bravery sparked a flame. Look, guys, we can all say silly things sometimes, Pierre chimed in again, attempting to lighten the atmosphere. But isn't that part of being human? Misunderstanding, growth, and sometimes disastrous cooking? The laughter resumed, a grounding presence that skirted away any lingering tension. Beneath the chuckles, Sarah noticed subtle shifts in her family, the way Aunt Carol's fingers fidgeted or how Uncle Jim rubbed his temples, perhaps reconsidering his own stance. She could feel the heaviness of their shared histories begin to lighten, yet Sarah's heart still thumped with a dual sensation, hope mixed with dread. What if today's acceptance was just a fleeting moment? A fleeting fluke? The questions pricked at her resolve. Can I say something? Grace raised her hand like a child, a playful sparkle in her eyes. I think while we embrace change, we need a plan. A family training session, so to speak. We can't expect understanding without acknowledging our own feelings first, right? Ethan's face lit up, and he nodded vigorously. Exactly. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. We could set up discussions, maybe even some fun activities that help us. Like a getting-to-know-you game. This could even expand beyond just us, Uncle Jim interjected, his voice nearly booming with enthusiasm. Why not involve our neighbors? It could be a community effort. Create a ripple effect. Excitement started to swell among the cousins, ideas sprouting like wildflowers. But just as the buzz reached a crescendo, Aunt Carol spoke again, her tone measured. That sounds lovely in theory, but what if we end up pushing too hard? What if it ends up backfiring? I still worry about what happens next. In the quiet that followed, Sarah exchanged a glance with Ethan, a shared understanding passing between them. Aunt Carol's fear was valid, yet she felt an unwavering belief that nothing worthwhile came without some discomfort. If they could face this together, even the stubbornest walls could collapse. I'll take the lead on the first discussion, Ethan said, his voice steady. The room quieted, attention focused on him. Let us lay everything out on the table. No judgments. Just honesty. I promise not to shy away from it, no matter how hard it gets. The gravitational pull of his words connected them all, and Sarah fought back tears as she saw unspoken pride bloom across the faces of her relatives. You know, Grace said softly, it's really hard to welcome change if we still cling to our old beliefs. It's like trying to walk through a door, but standing in a doorway. Maybe we need to step through fully. Let us say it out loud then, Uncle Jim added, looking straight at Aunt Carol. This is more than just Ethan, it's about us and how we evolve as a family. As the air hummed with this new understanding, Sarah realized that the next step was vital. They had to rise together, pushing against the forces that once divided them. But a new question unfurled in the back of her mind, a soft but persistent echo. What would it take to not just open the door, but keep it wide open? The sharing and laughter resumed, filling the room with warmth, but Sarah could feel the weight of the challenges ahead looming like distant shadows. Would they have the strength for the journey? Where would they go from here? The answers felt imminent, yet bound by a delicate thread of uncertainty. Would this be a breakthrough, or just the beginning of a bigger storm? As the conversation danced around the room, a collective energy pulsed through Sarah's family. The unearthed dreams and ideas flourished among them, building a bond that felt almost tangible. Each cousin, aunt, and uncle seemed to add a layer of hope, weaving a fabric that hinted at the possibility of change. But as Sarah settled back into the moment, the jovial mood couldn't entirely drown out her unease. How would they truly navigate the waters ahead? Just then, Ethan stood up. Why don't we share an embarrassing story about ourselves? He suggested, a grin spreading across his face. Like the time Aunt Carol tried to make the infamous chocolate souffle and nearly set the kitchen on fire. A chorus of laughter surged through the room. Sarah couldn't help but smile, but she could see Aunt Carol's cheeks redden as she tried to suppress her own chuckle. Oh, please. That was years ago. And I learned my lesson, she retorted, folding her arms defensively yet unable to hide her jovial sparkle. Grace raised an eyebrow, mischief twinkling in her gaze. Okay then. But you have to share your most embarrassing moment too, Aunt Carol. With the mood lightening, stories flew across the room like fireflies lit by a summer dusk. Each tale revealed flaws, mishaps, and, surprisingly, strength. Families weren't perfect. They were simply imperfectly woven together in shared moments. As the stories faded, Sarah noticed Ethan leaning in closer to her, his body radiating warmth and reassurance. See, love? He whispered. We can do this. We're already getting used to it. Her heart felt a gentle flutter. Previously, so much weight had hung over them, and now it seemed to lift, even if just a little. Let us not forget, next to the funny moments, our stories are also heavy, Uncle Jim interrupted thoughtfully. As we venture to explore deeper feelings, we can't lose sight of the bonds we've already formed. Things matter, but so do people. With these words hanging in the air, for a moment, silence fell upon them all. Everyone stared down at their plates or into their glasses, reflecting. Then, Ethan stirred, breaking the stillness. Maybe we should be honest about what's really on our minds, together. The statement was met with varying reactions. Some nodded, while others exchanged glances of uncertainty. Sarah watched as Aunt Carol stiffened again. Fear flashed in her eyes. Ethan. Honesty can be uncomfortable, she cautioned, her voice noticeably shaky, trailing off with unvoiced thoughts that lingered in the tense silence. Right, but discomfort is part of growth, Ethan replied gently, his resolve unwavering. He was unafraid. And we said we would do this together. What if we commit to sharing not just the light, but the shadows too? Tension crackled in the air. Sarah felt a lump rise in her throat. Would they be ready for that? Could they shine light on their old fears and unspoken truths without breaking each other apart? Suddenly, someone knocked at the door. The interruption startled everyone back to reality. Sarah exchanged a worried glance with Ethan. Who could that be? Maybe it's a neighbor, like Uncle Jim suggested, Grace offered hopefully, but doubt tainted her words. As the door creaked open, the figure stood silhouetted against the light. Sarah squinted, trying to make out the face. Her heart galloped. It couldn't be. What awaited them could change everything they had just built or destroy the fragile peace they were beginning to grasp. Will this unexpected visitor bring news of healing, or ignite the storm that lingered on the horizon? Sarah's breath hitched in her throat as the figure stepped into the room, and recognition washed over her like a cold wave. It was her brother, Jake, the one family member whose absence had weighed heavily on everyone's hearts since he moved away 3 years ago. The sight of him shattered the careful balance they had just begun to stitch together in that warm, laughter-filled moment. "What are you doing here?" Sarah's voice came out steadier than she felt. She wanted to leap into his arms, but also wanted to recoil from the sudden tension that suffocated the room. Jake's casual shrug did nothing to lessen the weight of the situation. "I thought I'd drop by and surprise everyone." He offered a weak but genuine smile, his eyes scanning the faces of their family, assessing the emotional landscape that had shifted dramatically. Aunt Carol, still holding a fork of half-eaten souffle, blinked in disbelief.
"Jake.
It's been ages. Why didn't you tell us you were coming?" "I wanted to see you all without the pressure of making a big announcement or plans," he replied, though Sarah could sense an underlying hesitation in his tone. It was as if he had stepped into a minefield, knowingly or unknowingly. The laughter faded, and an awkward silence enveloped them. Ethan stiffened beside Sarah, his warm aura replaced by uncertainty. She felt a sinking feeling this visit could derail everything they had begun to address. "Is everything okay?" Uncle Jim asked, breaking the spell. "You look different." "I've just been busy. Not living the perfect life everyone expects me to," Jake replied, a bitter edge creeping in. "You all seem to be getting along so well, and I haven't been part of it." The words lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. It was clear Jake felt isolated from the family bond that was growing stronger in his absence. Everyone sensed the emotional tension tightening like a noose. Sarah felt her heart ache for him. "We missed you, Jake," she said softly, stepping closer, capturing his gaze. "It's never been the same without you." Jake's defenses melted just a little at her earnestness. But there was more to this story. He shifted uncomfortably, glancing toward the door as if considering the option of retreat.
"Can we talk?"
he finally asked, his voice lower, carrying an urgency that made Sarah's stomach twist. Ethan turned to her, his brow furrowed.
"What do you want to talk about?"
The question hung in the space between them, weighty and fragile. Jake hesitated, gathering his thoughts. "Just everything that has happened. I feel like I've been sidelined, like I don't belong anymore." The vulnerability in his tone struck a chord, resonating with Sarah. This connection, this underlying thread of isolation, it was something they had all woven into their own stories in different ways. She sensed a chance for healing, a moment to extend the olive branch that had long beckoned her. Before she could respond, Jake continued, "And there's something else. I think you should hear it from me and not through the grapevine." "What is it?" Sarah urged, her heart racing, the words rolling around in her head, a jumble of possibilities. Jake took a deep breath, and in that moment, the room felt charged with the promise of revelation. "I'm coming home for the trip, but there's something important you don't know. Something that might change how you see me." As they all held their breath, waiting for him to spill what Rachel had secretly whispered to her, Sarah felt the past and present collide. Was this the moment they had all been waiting for, or was it the push that would shatter what they had just begun to build? Would Jake's truth bind them together or forever alter their fragile family tapestry? Jake shifted his weight from one foot to the other, the tension in the room palpable, like static before a storm. Sarah searched his eyes, desperate to draw out the truth that seemed to hover just beyond his grasp. "What is it, Jake?" she asked, grounding herself in the moment. "You can tell us." He took a step forward, his hands fidgeting in his pockets. I didn't want to come back empty-handed. I have something to share that I've been holding for too long." His gaze slipped momentarily to the floor, where the sunlight flickered across the hardwood, only to shoot back up to meet hers with a mixture of fear and resolve. What could possibly be so important? Ethan's voice cut through the thick air, laced with concern. "It's about why I left in the first place." Jake's words came out like a whisper, each syllable wrapped in years of untold stories. The family had its secrets, and this, Sarah suspected, was one that had consumed him. "Then just tell us," Aunt Carol urged, her voice cracking slightly, almost pleading for clarity. "I've been dealing with some things." He hesitated again, glancing at Sarah, then Uncle Jim. He seemed almost a stranger, like a long-lost fragment of their inflected family landscape. Things that made me feel like I had to leave. Like what? Sarah asked softly, heart racing as she leaned into his vulnerability, drawing out the hidden edges. With a shaky breath, Jake let it spill. I didn't just move away. I moved because I thought it was the only way to escape who I had become. He paused, and the room seemed to shrink closer, each pair of ears straining for clarity. I struggled with addiction in a way you all didn't see. I thought distance would cure it. I thought it would help me forget. Gasps echoed softly in the room, a ripple of shock flowing through each family member. Sarah felt the weight of his words crash down around them. She closed her eyes for a moment, processing the fissures in her brother's brave face. Why didn't you tell us? She whispered, the pain of distance tearing at her. He lowered his head, glancing briefly at Ethan, then back at Sarah, his voice cracking under the weight of his truth. Because I didn't want to bring you down with me. I wanted you to remember me as the brother you loved, not as the person I was becoming. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. We could have helped, Jake. We wanted to be there for you. You didn't have to do it alone. Uncle Jim's brow furrowed, a deep crease forming between his eyes. This is heavy, son. But sharing this now, this is the first step. You need to know that we're here for you. The words wrapped around Jake in a warm embrace, but the fear flickering in his eyes told a different story. I'm not sure I can ever really be okay, he admitted, the vulnerability in his voice a raw nerve. And I worry that if I come home, I'll just drag everyone down with me again. Sarah shook her head vigorously. That's not true. You coming back is a chance for us to heal together. For us to be a family again. We can figure this out. It doesn't have to be one person against the world. But their bond now faced a new challenge. They could either rally around Jake or buckle under the weight of what his truth could mean. What came next? Jake's battle. The family's acceptance loomed before them like dark clouds before a storm. How would Jake's honesty change their dynamic? Would this revelation serve as glue or further shatter their family unity? Please, Jake murmured, help me find my way back. As the weight of his plea hung in the air, a collective silence filled the room, saturated with possibility and despair. It was only then that Sarah realized there were more revelations waiting in the shadows, moments ready to unfold that could change everything. And just beyond the threshold of hope, a hinge of uncertainty loomed over their upcoming trip. Little did they know, another surprise awaited them, one that would test the very fabric of their newfound connection. Would they be ready for what lay ahead? The room fell quiet, a heavy pulse of anticipation thickening the air. Jake's hands trembled at his sides as he surveyed the faces of his family, each etched in concern and love. It was as if an unspoken agreement had been made. They would bridge the gap Jake had created, bringing him back into the folds of their lives. But the weight of his admission hung like an anchor. Jake, how can we help? Ethan finally broke the silence, his voice steady, but tinged with the intensity of brotherhood. Jake shifted uneasily. I don't know. I feel like I'm standing on the edge of a cliff, and every time I take a step forward, I'm terrified of falling back into my old patterns. Sarah felt her heart ache at his vulnerability. She took a hesitant step forward. We all have our battles. You're not alone in this. Just because you stumbled doesn't mean we'll let you fall. Aunt Carol nodded. Your family, Jake. We believe in the power of being together. You don't have to hide your struggles anymore. Their words warmed him, battling the internal chilling fear whispering defeat in the back of his mind. Maybe there was a way through all of this. I want that too, Jake admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. But I can't promise I won't struggle. We don't need promises, Uncle Jim said, his voice firm but compassionate. We need to take it one day at a time. And tomorrow can be the start of something new for you. We're going on this trip as a family. A flicker of hope sparked in Jake's eyes, quickly dashed by memories of relapses he struggled to forget. The trip was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to bond again, but could it really work with his history looming like a shadow? Just know that we'll face it together, whatever comes our way, Ethan added, his unwavering gaze resting on Jake, reinforcing the familial bond that had been strained but never broken. What if I mess it all up again? Jake asked, vulnerability surfacing like a wave crashing against his resolve. Then we'll face it together, like we're doing now, Sarah said firmly. We've got your back. We always will. Behind her words lay an undertone of sentimentality, a shared understanding that life had been anything but perfect. How many times had they yearned for an unbending sibling support only to be confronted by reality? As the room began to feel warmer, Jake sensed a flicker of something within himself, a willingness to try. Okay, he finally said, swallowing hard. I'll try. A tentative smile broke across Sarah's face, as if dawn were lighting up a darkened sky. But just as hope began to bloom, the doorbell rang, slicing through the fragile moment. The family exchanged glances, confusion painting the air.
Who could that be?
Uncle Jim asked, peering towards the door. Ethan shrugged but moved to open it, and as the door creaked open, a gasp escaped his lips. Who is it? Sarah asked, heart leaping in her chest as frantic thoughts raced through her mind. The figure at the door froze, the surprise in their eyes matching everyone else's. Sorry to interrupt. A familiar voice, edged with uncertainty, filled the room. But we need to talk. Jake's face paled, recognition dawning as he took a step back. The look of dread in his eyes, mixed with confusion among the family. What new revelation was about to unfold? And just like that, the storm they thought was calming flared again, ready to plunge the family into uncharted waters. As sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the once heavy atmosphere, Sarah felt a wave of nervous energy ripple through the room. The tension was palpable, wrapping around her like a tight band. Who stood before them, ready to stir the pot again? The unfamiliar voice broke through her reverie. I'm sorry, but we need to talk. It was Rachel, Jake's childhood friend. The familiarity in her tone raised an eyebrow, but also a wave of unease among the gathered family. Rachel? Jake stammered, confusion etched on his face. What are you doing here? Rachel hesitated before stepping further into the room, her gaze flitting from face to face. I didn't know where else to go. I heard about what you're all facing. Her eyes zeroed in on Jake, filled with unspoken understanding. Something felt heavy in the air, a new burden touching on the already frayed lines of their family tapestry. What do you mean? Sarah chimed in, her heart racing. Is everything okay? Rachel took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. I promise I'm not here to cause trouble. I just think it's time for the truth to be laid bare. Jake and we didn't just lose touch. I was there during his hardest times. He didn't have to be alone. But he chose to push everyone away, including me. The revelations hung in the air, shocking claps of thunder reverberating deep within the familial structure. Ethan shifted nervously, sensing the swell of emotions ready to explode. Jake? Sarah pressed gently, needing his eyes to meet hers.
What is she talking about?
The enormity of Rachel's words hit like a wave as Jake faced the family, embarrassment spreading over his features. I didn't want to bring you into my mess, he murmured. Rachel tried to help, but he broke off, running a hand through his hair. I thought I was protecting you all. When he finally locked eyes with Rachel, she stepped forward, vulnerability shimmering in the air. Jake, running away didn't save you. It made it easier to hide. All those times I tried to reach out, you pushed me away. You shut me out. A collective intake of breath echoed around the group. This wasn't just about Jake anymore. It was a family affair, the very definition of what support meant. Maybe it's time we redefine what family means, Rachel continued. It's not just about blood, it's about honesty and acceptance. She let that sit in the charged air, her words like a gentle storm washing over them. I can't handle this right now. Jake spat out, frustration mingling with regret, his cheeks flushing crimson. This was supposed to be my moment to fix things, not to unravel them further.
Jake.
Sarah's voice landed softly. You don't have to fix everything in one go. No one's perfect. You've struggled, and we still love you. But we need to face this together. What is it you're scared of? Before he could respond, tears glimmered in Rachel's eyes. Jake, you're not the only one struggling. Everyone has their battles. I felt helpless as a friend. I thought distance was a way to help. The room shrunk with emotion, their hearts aligned, revealing their vulnerabilities. But Jake, you still exist in our lives. Your story matters, Rachel said firmly, eyes filled with compassion. I'm lost, he admitted, voice shaky. I don't know how to navigate this. I've made mistakes, and I'm afraid of dragging you all down with me. The weight of his burden felt heavy, but somehow lighter in that moment of rawness. Look at us. We're all messy souls trying to get through it. Uncle Jim chimed in, thoughts formal yet heartfelt. What you think is a darkness is a shared experience. We're not going anywhere. Ethan's eyes sparkled with determination. We want you home, Jake. We want you to be part of this reclamation we're doing as a family. Your battle doesn't scare us. We can be stronger together. Rachel nodded, tears brimming her eyes. You don't have to carry the burden alone. Let us walk through it with you. As her words wove a thread of acceptance through the room, Sarah felt a surge of warmth. Maybe this was the moment of change they needed, an opening to healing. A turning tide in their family saga. Perhaps it wasn't just about fixing Jake. It was about intertwining their complexities into something extraordinary, something new. A silence fell over them once more, but this time it felt full, brimming with potential. Hope flickered in Jake's eyes as he surveyed his family's faces. Faced with their unwavering support, he took a step forward.
All right.
Let us try this together. I can't promise it'll be easy, but I want to belong.
I want to be part of this family.
That's all we ask, Sarah breathed, the weight of joy rushing through her like a gust of fresh air. As they rallied around Jake, wrapping him in warmth, Sarah felt the beginnings of a true transformation. All of them were poised to redefine the meaning of family, to embrace the messy, beautiful, and sometimes painful journey together. The family trip now had a renewed sense of purpose. They would traverse more than just physical miles. They would journey through shared experiences, joys, and vulnerabilities. The road ahead would be rough, filled with bumps and surprises, but with each other's hands clenched tightly, they were ready to embrace it all. As they prepared to step out once again into the world, a quiet understanding settled among them. They had weathered the storm together and emerged stronger, a family awash with love, acceptance, and hope. Now more than ever, Sarah felt the meaning of family flooding through her, a radiant testament to love's enduring power. And just like that, they stepped forward, ready to take on whatever was thrown their way and unite in a bond that had been carved through trials, struggles, and the intricate beauty of transformation. For those beautiful moments of vulnerability mattered, and together they were ready to break through all of life's challenges. Now, it's your turn. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to catch all the next exclusive stories that will warm your heart. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm so others can share in these journeys of connection and love. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. We want to hear from you. And if you've got at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation, don't wait not even one more second to share this video with them.